Welcome back, everybody. This is part 2 in my time-lapse build of the F-82E, and in this video we're going to see the kit go from starting with paint right through to completion, including the stand and the finishing of that and everything else. And if you haven't seen part 1 yet, down below there'll be a link if you do want to go over and watch that. That's the kit from effectively the box right up to primer. So on that note, let's jump right into this video, and as always, my name is Sean and this is Sean's Aviation. So here we are with the F-82, and it has a coat of aluminum on it, as I mentioned a while ago, and a couple of times now. I'm doing this in an all-over aluminum scheme, and I'm not using Alclad. This is Vallejo aluminum. This paint tends to stay tacky for a while, and it tends to pick up dirt pretty quickly, as well as get damaged. So I'm going to gloss coat this now. I'm not finished the painting process by any means. Weird. Okay, I've never seen that before at all. My future is beading on the wing. I'm just gonna grab a lint-free rag and wipe this off. I've never seen future floor wax bead up like that. And it's taking the surface of the metal off. Okay, I'm gonna have to let this sit. I finished painting this yesterday, but it's starting to bead up on me while I'm applying the future, and I have a distinct feeling that aluminum paint hasn't fully cured because I am getting color on this when I wrap it up. So I'm gonna let that sit for a few more days, and then I'll come back and I will future it. You need to get the future down, especially on some of the other paints, to seal it, and that's kind of what I was gonna get at with that. I wanna seal it now, make sure that aluminum paint doesn't get damaged, and then go over, mask off, and paint on the blue on the nose, the white tips and the white stripes and the black anti-glare all on my own after I have gloss coated. But for now, I am going to let that sit, and I'll come back and I'll attempt to do that another day. So on that note, stay tuned. It's glossed. I don't know what was happening with the future. I kept getting it beating up like water on a Rain-X windshield, and it was not working. I attempted a couple of times. I let it sit for almost 36 hours from the point that I painted it to the last attempt with future, and it still tried to beat up on me. So the best guess I have now, the Vallejo aluminum, it's a standard. It's not one of the metallics. It's their standard model air line. For reference, Vallejo makes the metal color. It's not one of these. It's the standard. Oh, I'm knocking everything off into my shop. Oh. making a mess in here. Anyways, it's a straight Model Air. However, it smells different. And I know that's a weird description, but most Vallejo paints, I don't even know how to explain the smell. It smells like mud, like yeah. The aluminum smells very, very different. So my guess is because it's a metallic color, it's formulated different than the regular Vallejo. So where Future will normally lay down on Vallejo without any issues, for whatever reason, it didn't play well with the aluminum. Like I said, I tried a bunch of times. It kept beating up. I know it also, the aluminum paint takes a longer time to dry. And like I said, it smells different. So there's definitely a different formulation going on with this aluminum paint. And it just did not like Future. So eventually I switched gears and I ended up going with the Alclad Gloss Clear. I chose it for a couple of reasons. One, it's Alclad. It's formulated to use with a metallic paint. Two, it's a lacquer base and it shouldn't react with the watercolor underneath. And for the most part, it worked quite well. It's also, I've used it before. It's a really hard finish. It's really hard to scratch or do anything with it. I had a little bit of issue with this here, the right wing underneath. Went a little bit orange peely on me, but you're not really going to see that. And I will flat coat this at the end, so I'm not terribly worried about the look. But now again, I'm going to let this sit for a day or two, and I'm going to start masking to paint the blue on the nose. And then I got to paint white on the wingtips, the horizontal stab and the vertical stabs. And then I'll come back after that and mask again, give the blue lots of time to dry. And I'll mask again and paint the black anti-glare on the front. And then this will be ready for decals. Oh, excuse me. Drank a coffee and it's not happy with me. Anyways, so that's the next couple of stages. Blue, I'm most likely going to go with the model color blue. It doesn't really like airbrushing very much, but the color is very, very close to the color blue that's on the instructions. So I'm gonna go with it. It is what it is. So yeah, that's my plan. As well, the spinners have to be painted blue. So I gotta get those ready to go and paint at the same time. But yeah, so that's where I'm at. Mask and paint the blue, mask and paint the white, mask and paint the black, and then I can move on. So let's keep at it. Masking, I'm probably gonna just use masking tape and draw the line on it. I was thinking of potentially making up a mask in cutting one out off of the Cricut, but looking at this, there's a lot of these little lumps and bumps, and the Cricut might not work very well. So I think I'm just going to use I think I'm just going to use masking tape. Lay the tape, draw the line. You can kind of follow on here where it's going to go. It's pretty easy. Color with, mark it with pencil, cut it out, and then just fill the masking. I don't have to worry about the top much because we painted black. So there's just a little bit of masking tape in there, and then I can hit it with, and I'll probably use some of that stick and peel, whatever it's called, press and peel, Glade or Glad press and peel. You've seen me use it before on other kits, but I'll use some of that to mask off the bigger areas, excuse me, for overspray, and we'll get this painted. So moving in the right direction. And here I start masking off around the nose section to paint the blue. I end up using just a Vallejo model color, not the Model Air, so I had to thin it and play with it to get it to work, and it didn't work out quite as well as I wanted. The color it has some bleed through in places, and it isn't quite as color dense as I would have liked, but it ends up looking really, really well. So I got that masked off, got that painted, and then I pull the masks off.
And then once I get that blue all finished off, I come around and I mask off to do the white stripes. Again, I use the decals as a reference, and they did include decals. So I believe the vertical stabilizers are included as decals, but the wingtips and the horizontal stab was not. I made them just a little bit thicker. I didn't intend to, but that's just how it worked out. But at the end, I mean, unless you got down there with measuring and, you know, a micrometer, you never notice, and it looks great from a distance. So I think it was a win. And then the final little bit of masking here, I mask off around the top of the nose and I paint the black anti-glare panel. And that was the last of the real big painting jobs. After that, it was all just fiddly bits and finishing up. So here we are with the E model, and as you can see, I'm at a pretty advanced stage, and if you've been following the build, you've seen how I got here. At this point, it's pretty much ready for decals. I hit it with that Alclad. I was having that issue with the Future. I hit it with Alclad, and it laid down nicely. I was then able to, on top of that, mask off and paint the blue nose, the white stripes, the black anti-glare. I hand painted the gray tips where the antennas would be, and then I went through again and I put Future across all of those areas, A, to gloss it for decals, and B, to seal it so I don't accidentally scratch it. I noticed this blue was pretty scratchable in some places. I do have a little bit of touch up on the aluminum here in a little bit, some places, but nothing too crazy. And then I also got the spinners painted. I haven't glossed those yet. I will have to do that soon. Just to get the color close to it and ensure that... Okay, apologies for that interruption. As I was saying, I did get the spinners painted. I haven't glossed them yet. It was a quick throw them together because I had the paint ready to go. They didn't turn out the best, but I'm hoping that a bit of gloss will fix that. And I am going to weather the props a little bit. You do get some leaking from like the prop seals and stuff like that. And so I'm going to make that, include that in the kit. But there are the props. The blue spinners really make a big difference. But yeah, so I've got to get the decals started, seal those decals. I'm also going to start working on the exhaust. I got to paint these Alclad, I don't know, either stainless steel or something, and then I'm going to hit them with a little bit of the Alclad exhaust to give them that burnt exhaust color, and then I have to paint the exhausts on the plane. I'm not going to go too heavy on the exhaust on this one. It's going to look like the pilots and the ground crew kept them relatively clean. It's going to have a little bit of minimal black wash weathering and minimal exhaust staining just to keep it as clean as possible. But I do have to do those exhausts. I'm going to do those soon because I also need to do the ones for the G model as well as the Mosquito. And I don't want to leave that to the very end because there's quite a bit of work and steps. I got to do clean them up, gloss black, Alclad weathering, Alclad sealing, and then I can glue them in place once the airframe has a flat coat. So there's a few steps that have to be done. So I want to kind of get those steps in the works while I'm doing other things. So it's not very end and then I'm rushing and I make mistakes. So Getting there. I'm also got the props that are going to have to go on. I'm going to do that later. It's really easy just to clip this to the alligator clip and glue those props in after the fact. So we'll do that later once, probably once I have this glued to the base. I don't want to put it down and snap a blade off. So once I have this mounted to the base, then I can work on the props. It's easy to pull the props on and off, and I'm not worried about snapping blades off as I'm working on it. There are some issues back here. I have a bit of a problem when I did some sanding and it went right down through all the layers. I'm gonna live with it. I'm not gonna worry too much about that. It is what it is. There's bigger issues with this kit than just that. But you know, you always look back and wish you did things differently, but it looks really good. As well, I've got to do all the rockets still, mount the all the hard points, or all the rocket hard points onto the pylons, and then I got to do up, there's 25 rockets, and all of them have to be painted gray with the olive drab front tip, and then get all glued on, which I'll have to do before I mount it to the base, but before I put the props on. I've still got to also do the exhaust back, the radiator doors, which is going to be a little bit of a pain. Quite a bit of work to modify those the way I'd like to clean those up and get them mounted. So there's still, it's not done. I'm there, but I've still got a while to go. So the next couple of steps, I'm most likely going to be both decaling as well as working with the exhausts. So that's the next step for that. So stay tuned, keep watching, and we'll check in a little while. And just so here, I got to start with the decals. As I mentioned, the vertical tails did have the white section with the blue outline provided as a decal, but because I painted the white, I just went ahead and used the blue stripes in the decal sheet that Caracal provided, and they were just sort of standard length ones, so I had to go through and kind of cut them all into the right length. And then I ended up using any of the overflow pieces on that horizontal stabilizer, and all the little short ones I used on the bottom because you're not really going to see it. And that allowed me to get all of those blue stripes done. And again, it looks really, really good. I'm very happy with how all of this turned out.
So, figured it was probably a good time to do a quick update on this kit while I'm poking away at this. So, as if you've been watching, you've seen that I've just finished these blue stripes on the decals, and I have literally the tiniest amount of extra. So, credit to Caracal decals for really measuring that out. Now, they do include a couple of these preset ones, which I think are kind of what's supposed to go on the tail, would be my guess, but I painted those on. So it is what it is. It's a little wider than it should be on the instructions by a little bit, but I'll live with it. Anyways, I have just a small, tiny amount of spares left. So what I'm going to do now is go around to all of these areas on the leading edge. Any of the edges, I should say, not just leading edge, but anywhere where the decal kind of wraps around. And I'm just going to trim off any extra that I have and make sure that the decals actually like line up. And there isn't like a gap. Anywhere the decal kind of wraps around, I need to make sure I cut off any excess and just make sure that what I do have kind of touches. So it looks like a complete shape. Like here I can already tell it's not quite lined up perfectly. Now that being said, I will touch up some of that with paint at the end. See this one here I need to trim. Luckily I can just use that. I might even use some of these decals here that I'm just trimming off and use them. Like for example, like I just said, this one here that's a little off center. I'll use that little bit of blue decal just to try to fix it, and a bit of hand brushing at the end will line it up. Same with that, needs a little bit. This one here needs a little bit. I think most of these I can fix with a little bit of yeah, so anyways, a little bit of touch up is needed on both of these, but the top ones I'll have to use a decal to fix. The back side looks good. I'll just trim, I'll trim these off here. This will also give me a good amount of extra decal to play with here. I might not need any of that extra that I have over there. I might be able just to use these pieces. I think I'll use, where did that just go? Huh. That piece I just had. That was weird. Anyways. I'll take this long piece here. I will cut it in half. And I will use each one of those halves to use on this top part. If I haven't shown you before, these watercolor pens for artists are great. I mean, I shouldn't say if I haven't shown you before. If I haven't mentioned it in this video yet. That being, oh, that's way too much water. That being said, if you guys want a better look at how I do my decaling process, you can check, I'll put a link up top here to, again, if I haven't done it already, to my tips and tricks decaling video. You'll see the process I use to get this to what I'm doing here. Oh, come on, there we go. Sorry for the sniffling. I have just the tiniest little bit of runny nose. Springtime in Canada. I mean, it's not really springtime, but a lot of the snow's melting. It's been really warm the past little while. And I am allergic to snow mold. So as all of that biodegradable material buried under the snow starts to come to the surface, my allergies start acting up a little bit. Anyways, that looks about right there. No! See, here's the downside to using these kind of leftover decals is there's no glue left on them. The glue's already been activated and then dried off, so it's not sticky anymore. So it becomes very difficult to get them to stay down. But I don't want to waste that last little bit, because if I ever have a problem down the road, I want to have that extra. Use a little bit of the decal solution to lock this in place. I want to have extra in case I mess anything up going forward. So just use a little of the decal setter. That should hold it in place and soften it down the way I need. Two birds with one stone. That looks really good. If I can just get it to stay without moving too much, I think. I think that's it right there. I don't want to mess around too much more and ruin it. So then I'll do the same thing. A little bit of decal solution on this side. Grab the decal at the point of my knife. Should grab onto that liquid and live there. And then I'll just center it as much as I can. That decal solution should pull it down on both sides. And then I'll go through and touch up. I'll go through and touch up with the paintbrush after and fix up any other little issues I have. That looks a lot better. I'll put a little bit on the bottom here as well. I still have a couple of these little pieces here. I can use them just to add a little bit of depth to that line. It's kind of twofold. I'm just filling in the little gap that's appeared between the two colors, as well as it's making that line just thick enough that when I come by with a paintbrush later, I can fix the white and the aluminum and make the line look straight. And I'll use a brush by hand to complete that. Just gotta get this. Yeah, it looks good. I'm happy with that. Once that settles down, bit of brush painting with some silver and some white, fix that up. I'm okay with, you know what, I say that, but there's just the slightest little piece right there. No, you know what? That won't work because that's, oh, look at that. I just found the one I lost. Look at that. There we go. I can cut that extra off later. Okay. So the leading edge of the tails needs to be touched up with both silver and white. That just needs to be touched up. I'll have to trim the back of that off, use that on that leading edge. Everything else is looking really, really good. So that's that. That's the hardest part. I think that blue stripe was really the hardest part of what I'm going to do. It was also the one that was kind of the most daunting because I wasn't entirely sure how much of the stripe I would have available. I still have this piece over here if I need to make some other little tiny touch-up pieces. But that's that. So now we'll move on and we'll do the rest of it. I'll store that up there so I know where it is. And yeah, I think next I'll do, no, where are the decals? Where are they? Yeah, there they are. Next up, I'll start with some of these national insignias on the wings and the fuselage. I guess it's just the wings. It's interesting. I get two separate versions of the USAF. I'm going to use the nice 45 one. I like that. So that it's going to go the way of the dodo. Get rid of that. There's not too much left. All I have left is just that, a couple of these. I still have the propeller blades to do. Yeah. Anyways, keep moving on. Keep following. We'll get the rest of this done. There's also, I guess I should have mentioned, on the G model, I used a lot of the stencils around the cockpit and the flaps. And on this one, I'm going to paint it because it's red paint. So here, I'll show you on the G model. There's all these warnings on the flaps. I'm going to paint that by hand. I'm going to with red paint. Same on the sides. There's these little tiny like cockpit markings as well on the canopies. I'll paint those by hand. I don't really need to use decals for that. It's harder to paint the red on the black kit, so I used the decals for that. On the silver, I should be able to quickly just paint in those lines. No issues at all. So I'll do that with the red paint after I'm done the decals. So finish the decals, gloss coat, then I'll paint on those red details, then I'll gloss coat again, and then I'll hit it with some exhaust staining. So we're moving along. Stay tuned. We'll get these decals done. And once all the decals are done here, I go across with another coat of Future. And once I put down that layer of Alclad Clear, the Future went right on top without any issues. So there was some reaction between the Future and that silver paint earlier on in the process. But by here on out, it was easy. I just sealed all those decals with the Future, and then I went ahead and did a bit of weathering. Not a lot. I wanted to keep this relatively clean, but I went through and did a little bit of weathering just to make it look a little used.
You'll see here now it's got a final coat of semi-gloss on it. I go ahead and start pulling the maskings. You'll also notice I got the exhaust staining painted on. That's just a little bit of like a tanny brown color first and then a little bit of black on top, and it just makes it look really, really good. That's the easiest way I found to do the exhaust staining. But yeah, I go ahead, I pull off the canopy masking, and from here on out it gets even easier because all the painting's done. It's just those final little bits I have to install. And here I start working on the propeller blades. There's 8 of them because it's got 2 4-bladed propellers. I paint white first, and then I paint the yellow over top. I find the Vallejo yellow is a bit of it's very translucent, and it doesn't have a lot of color density when you put it over top of other colors. So I usually try to do a white background and then paint that on top. And I did it by hand. I could have masked and airbrushed it all, but to be perfectly honest, I was getting a little airbrushed out at this point of the build. So I just went ahead and did it all by hand. And then you'll see I start getting worked on the base, get it stained, and then I put up, I think, 3 coats of clear, go down with a little bit of sanding in between just to make sure that base is nice and hard and nothing's ever going to damage that.
Okay, so we're at the stage where I now need to mask the rockets for the olive drab nose and tail. And I'm trying to figure out if there's an easy way to measure the distance. And I think what I'm literally going to do is just use the thickness of the tape, which is 10 mils. I'm going to spin this around so that I have my metric side available. And all I literally need to do is just place that down, measure a centimeter roughly, and then fold it around on itself. And that should give me a decent green on the tip. And then the back half is just even easier because all I need to do is just place it somewhere just a hair. I'm not measuring it, I'm just eyeballing, just slightly forward on the rocket body in front of the fins to make it look like those fins were added after the fact. Then there's a little tiny bit of band down the middle, and I'll just use some thinner, what is that, 6 mil tape, and I'll just fill that in. And there we go. So just like that, without any effort, or I shouldn't say without any effort, without much work, you've masked it off to the point that you can now paint where's my painting block? Did I paint something? Huh. Oh, you know what it is. I think I have more rockets in there. Anyways, and then you'll be able to grab it by the tape, I should say, and then you can go ahead and paint all of your olive drab bits, and then that's that. Now the problem is, I gotta go do 25 more of these. So let's jump into a time lapse. And you'll watch me tape 25 rockets.
You'll see here I start pulling the masking off of those rockets now that I have the gray and the green painted on. And then I go ahead and paint the little silver tip on each one. That was a bit of a pain. Again, it was hard to get them to look accurate, but you know, you do the best that you can. And then, you know, here in a sec, you'll see I start gluing them on. I actually don't use super glue. I sanded all of the little tips of the nubs on the rocket mounts. So I had some clear, like some exposed plastic. And then I go ahead and I just start gluing those rockets on, just using regular old model glue. And it grabbed quite nicely. I have to say, even with the rockets still being painted, it bit really nice and it had a good solid connection. And I mean, I haven't lost one yet. It's been sitting on the stand for a while and I haven't knocked one off. So fingers crossed, knock wood, these should last. But it ends up looking really cool with all 25 rockets mounted underneath.
So here we are at the end of the build, and here is the finished kit. Is it perfect? No. Do I recommend the Modelcraft F-82 kit? No. For the vast majority of builders, this is not worth it. It is a lot of work. The fit is horrible, soft detail, very, very bad locating. There's very little positive location for a lot of parts. If you're an experienced builder, there's the Models of It kit. If you're an inexperienced builder, there's a Models of It kit. The only saving grace for this was it was relatively inexpensive. I think I spent about 15 bucks on this. It's the only reason I'd say do it. If you've got the kit at a decent price and you're willing to put in a lot of effort, then you can get something that looks somewhat okay. But it takes a lot of effort, and I mean, I enjoyed building it. I'm glad I finally got it done. It's been sitting in my closet for many, many years, so I'm glad I finally did it, and it looks cool. But I don't recommend it for pretty much anybody. Finished off, as we've always mentioned, is the F-82E. It's the day fighter version. I used the Caracal decals to finish it off. I used all the rockets
Again, really bad fit on the rockets. The stubs that mount on the front and back, again, there's no location for them to get either side to side, front to back, or angle. It just floats. There's no positive location in all three axes. Apologies, interruptions from kids. Yeah, so there's no positive location in all three axes for the stubs, so it's up to you to kind of figure out where they all go. And then as you're gluing the rockets onto the stubs, again, there's no positive location, both forward to back or left to right, or the rotational aspect of the rocket. So some of the rockets are a little crooked just because you put them on and you can't get it straight. It doesn't necessarily want to fit. So again, it takes a little bit of skill and effort and ability, ability to put this together to make it look decent. And I hope I did okay. I'm happy with it. I think it'll look good on the shelf, and it definitely plays the part of an F-82. So yeah, I'm gonna wrap it up there. You'll be able to see just a couple of quick pictures here of the finished product, and we will move on to another round of model building. So stay tuned on my monthly updates where I will introduce the next couple of kits I'll be working on. So there it is. That's the Modelcraft 1/48 scale F-82E completed with Caracal decals. And for all of those who did manage to stick around to the end of this video, thank you so much. We'll see you all next time.